ابوالفضل. هر شب میخونم با شور و نوا کربلا میخوام ابوالفضل. همراه فرج میکنم دعا کربلا میخوام ابوالفضل. فکر سجود نمازم شده کربلا میخوام ابوالفضل. جداییم هر دیدار آقا کربلا میخوام ابوالفضل.
ابوالفضل کربلاییم کن، ابوالفضل کربلاییم کن، ابوالفضل کربلاییم کن، ابوالفضل کربلاییم کن.
نفس نفسم ذکر کربلا، کربلا میخوام ابوالفضل. عشق من فقط کن بد طلا، کربلا میخوام ابوالفضل. جون و زندگیم نذر روزقات کربلا میخوام ابوالفضل. قسمتم بکن تا بیام حرم کربلا میخوام ابوالفضل.
ابوالفضل کربلاییم کن، ابوالفضل کربلاییم کن، ابوالفضل کربلاییم کن، ابوالفضل کربلاییم کن.
همش که آبم القمه میگه ای شاه وفا ابوالفضل. هم قلب و دل فاطمه میگه ای شاه وفا ابوالفضل. غیرتم اینه حیدرم میگه ای شاه وفا ابوالفضل. جون و زندگیم نذر روزقات کربلا میخوام ابوالفضل.
ابوالفضل کربلاییم کن، ابوالفضل کربلاییم کن، ابوالفضل کربلاییم کن، ابوالفضل کربلاییم کن.
هر شب میخونم با شور و نوا کربلا میخوام ابوالفضل. هر شب میخونم با شور و نوا کربلا میخوام ابوالفضل. همراه فرج میکنم دعا کربلا میخوام ابوالفضل. ذکر سجود نمازم شده کربلا میخوام ابوالفضل. جون و زندگیم نذر روزقات کربلا میخوام ابوالفضل.
ابوالفضل کربلاییم کن، ابوالفضل کربلاییم کن، ابوالفضل کربلاییم کن، ابوالفضل کربلاییم کن.
نفس نفسم ذکر کربلاست، کربلا میخوام ابوالفضل. عشق من فقط کن بد طلا، کربلا میخوام ابوالفضل. جون و زندگیم نذر روزقات کربلا میخوام ابوالفضل. قسمتم بکن تا بیام حرم کربلا میخوام ابوالفضل.
ابوالفضل کربلاییم کن، ابوالفضل کربلاییم کن، ابوالفضل کربلاییم کن، ابوالفضل کربلاییم کن.
همش که آبم القمه میگه ای شاه وفا ابوالفضل. هم قلب و دل فاطمه میگه ای شاه وفا ابوالفضل. حیرتم اینه حیدرم میگه ای شاه وفا ابوالفضل. جون و زندگیم نذر روزقات کربلا میخوام ابوالفضل.
ابوالفضل کربلاییم کن، ابوالفضل کربلاییم کن، ابوالفضل کربلاییم کن، ابوالفضل کربلاییم کن.
کاروان دل راهی حرم عاشقان کربلایی. کاروان دل راهی حرم عاشقان کربلایی. کی خودم میرم زائرش میشم ایمون از این جدایی. همه رفیقان من شدن کربلایی و هنوزم من تو حسرت گنبد طلا هر محرمی میسوزم.
ابوالفضل کربلاییم کن، ابوالفضل کربلاییم کن، ابوالفضل کربلاییم کن ابوالفضل کربلاییم کن.
دیگه خستم از در به دری کربلا میخوام ابوالفضل کی منو تا 6 گوشه میبری کربلا میخوام ابوالفضل آتیشم زده داغ کربلا کربلا میخوام ابوالفضل ناله میزنم بین روزنها کربلا میخوام ابوالفضل کربلا میخوام کربلا میخوام کربلا میخوام ابوالفضل کربلا میخوام کربلا میخوام کربلا میخوام ابوالفضل. چند سالیه که دل عاشقم بی شکیب و بی قراره
گزار محترم متوجه زیارت عاشورا بسم الله الرحمن الرحیم. السلام علیک یا ابا عبدالله، السلام علیک یا ابن رسول الله، السلام علیک یا خیرت الله و ابن خیرته. السلام عليك يا ابن أمير المؤمنين وابن سيد الوصيين، السلام عليك يا ابن فاطمة سيدة نساء العالمين، السلام عليك يا ثار الله وابن ثاره والوتر الموتور، السلام عليك وعلى الأرواح التي حلت بفنائك، عليكم مني جميعا سلام الله أبدا ما بقيت وبقي الليل والنهار. يا أبا عبد الله، يا أبا لقد ضمت الرزية وجلت وعظمت المصيبة بك علينا وعلى جميع أهل الإسلام، وجلت وعظمت مصيبتك في السماوات على جميع أهل السماوات. فلعن الله أمة أسست أساس الظلم والجور عليكم أهل البيت، ولعن الله أمة دفعتكم عن مقامكم وأزالتكم عن مراتبكم التي رتبكم الله فيها، ولعن الله أمة قتلتكم، ولعن الله الممهدين لهم بالتمكين من قتالكم. برئت إلى الله وإليكم منهم ومن أشيائهم وأتباعهم وأوليائهم. يا أبا عبد الله، يا أبا إني سلم لمن سالمكم وحرب لمن حاربكم إلى يوم القيامة. ولعن الله آل زياد وآل مروان، ولعن الله بني أمية قاتبا، ولعن الله ابن مرجان، ولعن الله عمر بن صادم، ولعن الله الشمرا، ولعن الله أمة أسرجت وألجمت وتنقبت لقتالك. بأبي أنت وأمي لقد عظم مصابي بك، وأسأل الله الذي أكرم مقامك وأكرمني بك أن يرزقني طلب صالك مع إمام منصور من أهل بيت محمد صلى الله عليه وآله. اللهم اجعلني عندك وجيها بالحسين عليه السلام في الدنيا والآخرة. يا أبا عبد الله. يا أبا إني أتقرب إلى الله وإلى رسوله وإلى أمير المؤمنين وإلى فاطمة وإلى الحسين وإليك بموالاتك وبالبراءة ممن قاتلك ونسب لك الحرب وبالبراءة ممن أسس أساس الظلم والجور عليكم وأبروا إلى الله وإلى رسوله ممن أسس أساس ذلك وبنى عليه بنيانا وجرى في ظلمه وجوره عليكم وعلى أشياعكم برئت إلى الله وإليكم منهم وأتقرب إلى الله ثم إليكم بموالاتكم وموالاة وليكم وبالبراءة من أعدائكم والناصبين لكم الحرب وبالبراءة من أشياعهم وأتباعهم إني سلم لمن سالمكم وهرب لمن هاربكم وولي لمن والاكم وعدو لمن عاداكم فأسأل الله الذي أكرمني بمعرفتكم ومعرفة أوليائكم ورزقني البراءة من أعدائكم أن يجعلني معكم في الدنيا والآخرة وأن يثبت لي عندكم قدم صدق في الدنيا والآخرة وأسأله أن يبلغني المقام المحمود لكم عند الله وأن يرزقني طال مساركم مع إمام هدى ظاهر ناطق بالحق منكم وأسأل الله بحقكم وبالشأن الذي لكم عنده أن يعطيني بمصابي بكم أفضل ما يعطي مصابا بمصيبته مصيبة ما أعظمها وأعظم رزيتها في الإسلام وفي جميع السماوات والأرض اللهم اجعلني في مقام هذا ممن تناله منك صلوات ورحمة ومغفرة اللهم اجعل محياي محيا محمد وآل محمد ومماتي ممات محمد وآل محمد اللهم إن هذا يوم تبركت به بنو أمية وابن آكلة الأكباد اللعين ابن اللعين على لسانك ولسان نبيك صلى الله عليه وآله في كل موطن وموقف وقف فيه نبيك صلى الله عليه وآله اللهم لن أبا سفيان ومعاوية ويزيد بن معاوية عليهم منك اللعنة أبد الآبدين وهذا يوم فرحت به آل زياد وآل مروان بقتلهم الحسين صلوات الله عليه اللهم فضعف عليهم اللعنة منك والعذاب الأليم اللهم إني أتقرب إليك في هذا اليوم وفي موقف هذا أيام حياتي بالبراءة منهم واللعنة عليهم بالموالاة لنبيك وآل نبيك عليه وعليهم السلام بنيت السد مرتبة اللهم لعن أول ظالم ظلم حق محمد وآل محمد وآخر تابع له وذا ذلك اللهم لعن العصابة التي جاهدت الحسين وشايعت وبايعت وتابت على قتله اللهم لعنهم جميعا بنية الصدمة السلام عليك يا أبا عبد الله وعلى الأرواح التي حلت بفنائك عليك مني سلام الله أبدا ما بقيت وبقي الليل والنهار ولا جعله الله الآخر العهد مني لزيارتكم. السلام على الحسين وعلى علي بن الحسين وعلى أولاد الحسين وعلى أصحاب الحسين. اللهم خص أنت أول ظالم باللعن مني، وابدأ به أولا ثم الثانية والثالث والرابع. اللهم العن يزيد خامسا، والعن عبيد الله بن زياد وابن مرجان وعمر بن سعد وشمرا وآل أبي سفيان وآل زياد وآل مروان إلى يوم القيامة. السجدة. اللهم لك الحمد حمد الشاكرين، لك على مصابهم، الحمد لله على عظيم رزيتي. اللهم ارزقني شفاعة الحسين يوم الورود، وثبت لي قدم صدق عندك مع الحسين وأصحاب الحسين الذين بذلوا مهجهم دون الحسين عليه السلام. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد.
روی لبها نور و قدر و کوثر و طاها، ذکر نورانی عاشقها، تسبیحات حضرت زهرا. الله اکبر، این همه جلال، الله اکبر، این همه شکوه، الله اکبر در راه علی. فاطمه ایستاده مثل یکو، صلی الله علیه فاطمه، صلی الله علیه فاطمه، صلی الله علیه روی لبها نور و قدر و کوثر و طاها، نور و قدر و کوثر و طاها، ذکر نورانی عاشقها، تسبیحات حضرت زهرا. الله اکبر، این همه جلال، الله اکبر، این همه شکوه، الله اکبر در راه علی. فاطمه ایستاده مثل یکو، صلی الله علیه فاطمه، صلی الله علیه فاطمه، صلی الله علیه روی لبها نور و قدر و کوثر و طاها، ذکر نورانی عاشقها، تسبیحات حضرت زهرا. الله الله اکبر این همه جلال، الله اکبر این همه شکوه، الله اکبر در راه علی فاطمه ایستاده مثل یک کوه. میدونم که راز شهادت این اشکا رنگ خدا میگیرم من با تسبیحات حضرت زهرا. الحمدلله که نوکرتم، الحمدلله که مادرمی، الحمدلله از بچگی ها مادر سایه روی سرمی. صلی الله علیک یا فاطمه، صلی الله علیک یا فاطمه، صلی الله علیک یا فاطمه، صلی الله علیک یا فاطمه. از غصه ها چشم عاشقا شده دریا، روزه بعد نماز ما تسبیحات حضرت زهرا. سبحان الله باغ بهشت و دور، سبحان الله از لحظه ورود، سبحان الله پیش چشم علی آیه های کوثر شده کبود. صلی الله علیک یا فاطمه، صلی الله علیک یا فاطمه، صلی الله علیک یا فاطمه، صلی الله علیک یا فاطمه. لبها نور و قدر و کوثر و طاها، ذکر نورانی عاشقها، تسبیحات حضرت زهرا. الله اکبر این همه جلال، الله اکبر این همه شکوه، الله اکبر در راه علی فاطمه ایستاده مثل یک کوه. صلی الله علیک یا فاطمه، صلی الله علیک یا فاطمه، صلی الله علیک یا فاطمه. روی لبها نور و قدر و کوثر و طاها، ذکر نورانی عاشقها، تسبیحات حضرت زهرا. الله اکبر این همه جلال، الله اکبر این همه شکوه، الله اکبر در راه علی فاطمه ایستاده مثل یک کوه. میدونم که راز شهادت این اشکا رنگ خدا میگیرم من با تسبیحات حضرت زهرا. صلی الله علیک یا فاطمه، صلی الله علیک یا فاطمه، صلی الله علیک یا فاطمه، صلی الله علیک یا فاطمه.
And may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala accept the Jama'ah prayers and the ziyarah from all of you. Our condolences upon Shahada of Imam Hussein alayhi salam and his companion. We will continue our program tonight with recitation of verses 188 through 193 of Surah Mubarakeh Baqarah, inshallah, which will be recited by our brother Agha Reza Rezai. The Farsi translation, Tarjumi Farsi, inshallah, Tawassut Haji Yasin Amili. And the English translation will be recited by brother Abbas Hussaini, inshallah. On the second session, we will have some announcement. And on the third session, we will have Ajaga Mudaris' speech. Ajaga Mudaris' speech and the continuation of healing the heart now is going to be changing to sealing the heart, sealed hearts, those hearts that are sealed, how to open them up to Nur and to Barakah and to Hidayat, inshallah. Ajaga Mudaris will transition to sealed heart, inshallah. از محترم آقای رضا رضایی خواهش میکنم که تشریف برن و آیه 188 تا 193 سوره مبارکه بقره را تلاوت بفرمایند. سرسلامتی خودشان و فامیل محترمشان صلوات محمدی پسند ختم بفرمایید عزیزان. اللهم صل علی
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. ولا تأكلوا أموالكم بينكم بالباطل وتدلوا بها إلى الحكام لتأكلوا فريقا من أموال الناس بالإثم وأنتم تعلمون. يسألونك عن الأهلة قل هي مواقيت للناس والحج وليس البر بأن تأتوا البيوت من ظهورها ولكن البر من اتقى وأتوا البيوت من أبوابها واتقوا الله لعلكم تفلحون. وقاتلوا في سبيل الله الذين يقاتلونكم ولا تعتدوا إن الله لا يحب المعتدين. واقتلوهم حيث ثقفتموهم وأخرجوهم من حيث أخرجوكم والفتنة أشد من القتل ولا تقاتلوهم عند المسجد الحرام حتى يقاتلوكم فيه فإن قاتلوكم فاقتلوهم كذلك جزاء الكافرين فإن انتهوا فإن الله غفور رحيم وقاتلوهم حتى لا تكون فتنة ويكون الدين لله فإن انتهوا فلا عدوان إلا على الظالمين صدق الله العلي العظيم.
أعوذ بالله من شر شیطان اللعین الرجیم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحیم. و بین خودتان اموال یکدیگر را به ناحق مخورید و آن را به عنوان رشوه به داوران مدهید، با این قصد که قسمتی از اموال گروه دیگر را از روی علم و از روی گناه بخورید. از تو درباره هلال ماه‌های نو می‌پرسند. بگو آنها نشانه هایی است که به مردم وقت معین کارها و زمان رفتن به حج را مشخص می کند و دیانت آن نیست که شما به خانه هایتان از پشتان داخل شوید، ولی اگر از خدا می ترسید درستکاری آن است که به خانه هایتان از درهای ورودی وارد بشوید و از خدا بترسید باشد که رستگار بشوید و در راه خدا با کسانی که با شما می جنگند کارزار کنید و اما تعدی مکنید، زیرا که خدا متجاوزان را دوست ندارد. هر جا که آنها را گرفتید بکشید و از جایی که شما را بیرون کردند بیرونشان کنید، زیرا که فتنه از قتل بدتر است. اما در مسجد الحرام با آنها نجنگید مگر اینکه ابتدا آنها با شما به جنگ بپردازند. پس اگر با شما جنگیدند آنان را بکشید و سزای کافران چنین است. و اگر باز ایستادند خدا آمرزنده و مهربان است. با آنها بجنگید تا دیگر فتنه نماند و دین از آن خدا بشود. ولی اگر از جنگ باز ایستادند باز استید. ادامه جنگ تنها علیه ستمکاران است. صدق الله العلی العظیم. صلوات.
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Do not eat up your wealth among yourselves wrongfully, nor prefer it to the judges. In order to eat up a part of the people's wealth sinfully, while you know that it is immoral to do so. They question you concerning the new moons. Say, they are timekeeping signs for the people and for the sake of Hajj. It is not piety that you enter the houses from their rear, rather piety is personified by the one who is God-wary, and enter the houses from their doors. And be wary of Allah so that you may be the felicitous. Fight in the way of Allah, those who fight you but do not transgress. Indeed, Allah does not like transgressors. And kill them wherever you confront them, and expel them from where they expel you. For persecution is graver than killing. But do not fight them near the holy mosque unless they fight you therein. But if they fight you, kill them. Such is the requital of the faithless. But if they desist, Allah is indeed all forgiving, all merciful. Fight them until persecution is no more, and religion becomes exclusively for Allah. Then, if they desist, there shall be no reprisal except against the wrongdoers. Sadaqallahu alayhi wa
With many, many thanks and appreciation to Brother Razai, Haji Yasin Amili, and Brother Abbas Husseini for recitation of Quran and the Farsi and English translations. On the second session, we don't have any poetry or articles, so we will go to Ajaga Mudarris' speech, inshallah, after these announcements. If you would like to have a pilgrimage, travel to Iraq or to one of these places that I'm going to say about, uh, Sayed Travel presents three packages. The first package is for departing January 5th, no, December 16th through January 5th. It's for Hajj Umrah, Iraq and Iran. The second package is just Iraq and Iran, and the third package to Iraq only. If you would like to go with them, there are contact in the bottom of that page. This flyer has been posted on both sides, men and women side. So please give them a call and see if you want to go with them, and hopefully um, this would be a good trip, a pilgrimage trip that is mustahab, inshallah, for everybody to perform, inshallah. With that being said, please see Brother Saeed Razak and Brother Ziai Amili for your monthly donations. Please make sure that your monthly pledges are up to date, and if you can do a little more, because this month we had a lot of expenses. We were here the entire last week, so that would be even greatly appreciated. So please make sure that your monthly pledges are done. Please help us to keep our masjid clean as much as possible. And with that being said, just my last request that I've been forgetting lately, please make sure that when you're the drought is so very serious. We have to take drought seriously. There's not a lot of rain. You guys have seen it. We didn't have rain in the last 2-3 years. What I heard on the radio, there is a company in by Calabasas and Las Virgenes Road. They're trying to refine the used water and give it to us within the next few years to consume. That 25% of our water will come from that waste water filtration back to us. So this is how serious the drought is. So please, when you're taking shower, when you're taking wudu, when you're washing dishes, anything with water, believe me, you can do it with a lot less. I have experienced it. You can do it while you're washing your hands, right? You know, wash your hands, close it, use the soap as much as possible. Take 5, 10 minutes, 2 minutes, whatever, but close the faucet. The faucet doesn't has to run all that time. It's a waste of water. Same thing when you're taking wudu, the same thing with washing dishes. I'm washing dishes with a lot less water than before. So if you would like me to teach you, please let me know, and I don't mind to teach you how I do it. So my goal is to reduce water as much as possible, and there's a state mandate as well to cut 25% of your water on a monthly basis. And what I heard from radio, we saved 13% last month. So it's good, it's not bad, but we have to harder work on it a lot more harder, and hopefully we can do it. So please, so just take out 20% of your regular use, make it less. Thank you very much for listening to my announcement. We did all of that, and as I announced at the beginning, Ajaga Madaris is trans. Can I have your attention? I know I talked a lot, and maybe it didn't make any sense to anybody. I don't know what I was rambling about, but it was all about water, right? Can I have your attention, please? Ajaga Madaris' title, the speech of Ajaga Madaris will be Sealed Hearts. And now, without any further ado, we will listen to Ajaga Madaris, inshallah. Say aloud salawat. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. For the honor of Mawlana wa Sayyidina Rasulullah, his Immaculate Progeny Ahlul Bayt, for the hasten and return of Imam of our time, please recite a salawat ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان اللعين الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين حبيب إله العالمين وخاتم النبيين أبي القاسم المصطفى محمد وعلى أهل بيته الطيبين الطاهرين المعصومين المكرمين واللعن الدائم على أعدائهم أعداء الله أجمعين من الآن إلى لقاء يوم الدين. قال الله تبارك وتعالى في القرآن الكريم وقوله الحق وهو أصدق الصادقين ختم الله على قلوبهم وعلى سمعهم وعلى أبصارهم غشاوة ولهم عذاب عظيم صدق الله العلي العظيم. For the honor of Abu Abdullah Hussein alayhi salam, his companions, Shuhadai Karbala, recite the salawat ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. This is continuation of our topic during Muharram on the topic of healing of the hearts. We discussed gradually our hearts, our qalb goes through different changes from distraction to forgetfulness. And then we talk about deviated heart. And then lastly, on the final day, we talked about a cold heart or a stone heart, qisawa, a heart that has no compassion, no empathy. And we talk about how we can heal it through the teachings of our religion, through the teachings of the Quran and the teachings of the Prophet and his family. In Juma prayer I mentioned today, we are living in two environments on daily basis. There is a physical environment that we live in. There's a physical realm, which is, what we see, what we feel, what we experience physically, physiologically. But also we believe in a second realm of existence, and that's the spiritual realm. الَّذِينَ يُؤْمِنُونَ بِالْغَيْبِ, those who believe in the unseen. The spiritual realm are not visible by the eyes. They're not tangible by our touches and our senses, but they're also being experienced through the heart, through our soul. That's why when they ask Imam Ali alayhi salam, is it possible to see God? He said, I will not worship a God that I cannot see. But one thing you should know is that Allah cannot be perceived and observed by the eyes of the head, by the physical and physiological eyes. But He can be seen by the heart of the eyes, by understanding, but with what we call faith, belief. That's how we end up recognizing Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and seeing Him. And again, in English, I mentioned this, when we say I see, when somebody makes a point, they make a comment, and you say, I see. You don't see anything. You just say, I understand your point. I get what you say. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala can be seen through that definition. We can recognize, we can understand Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, His existence and His blessing. And by the way, I would like to thank our youth, especially our youth, for volunteering during Muharram. One of the reasons we have, mashallah, so much noise right now is because usually during Muharram, They're the one volunteering outside and managing the kids, teaching them. Uh, According to one of them, they've been bribing them with different kind of snacks. When they asked me tonight, should we still do it? And I saw desperation. I said, no. So take a break. We're going to suffer together. You've been suffering for the entire Muharram majalis, and from now on, inshallah, we share the suffering together. Uh, for the increased blessing, tawfiqat of all the youth, especially those who volunteer, let's recite the salawat. So we have these two realms of existence, the spiritual one, the physical one. And we are, our soul is being dragged to either one direction. Either side, if they take the supremacy and they reign supreme, the other side will weaken and they will be more silent. So if we embrace the spiritual realm more, the worldly life start to become more silent. That's why we call zuhud. Zahid is somebody who lives on earth, but they're so detached from anything worldly and possessions. On the other side, if somebody's supremacy is being taken over by the worldly matters, by the physical world, then the spiritual world gets silent. Why you care about akhirat? Why talk about these fictional, imaginary things? Focus on your business. So one silence the other side. That's the way this struggle continues on daily basis. My topic today was about battle against self. But my topic, when we talk about the heart and this constant struggle, our heart as a source of, as I said, comprehension, that the spiritual existence, we should know one thing about it. And that is that our religion offers cure for the spiritual world much more than the physical world. So if you look at the teachings of the Prophet, if you look at the verses of the Quran, how many verses of Quran is about the physical world? There are verses that Allah said, إِنَّ فِي خَلْقِ السَّمَوَاتِ وَالْأَرْضِ وَاخْتِلَافِ اللَّيْلِ وَالنَّهَارِ. Indeed, in the creation of the earth and the heavens and the alternation of day and night, in your own creation, there are signs for the people of intellect. For those who exercise their reason, everything around you that you observe, the physical world, they are ayat, they're signs. They're not the goal. They're supposed to teach you, lead you to something more important. But most of the verses are in that level. And that was never the intention of Quran, as mentioned to our youth before. Quran is not a book of biology, is not a book of geography. Don't look at the Quran as a textbook for those fields. It's not. There are verses indicating all these different fields, but none of them are saying the Quran is a book on this subject. But what is Quran about? It's a book of how to live. So it means if you learn biology, if you learn business, if you learn language, geography, everything, how you're going to utilize those knowledge, those different fields, how we're going to use them. That's the role of Quran. Quran teaches us how to do it, how to live with them. So when we say Quran offers a cure, please, again, I repeat, if you look at the tradition of the Prophet, there are some tradition that Prophet said, don't overeat. Overconsumption is bad for you. Imam Ali alayhi salam said, don't make your stomach the graveyard of animals. That's it. They're very general. You don't find a hadith that said, oh, take this food with that food. And there is an extent to that, and there is a reason for it. Because when it comes to body, you can study it, you can observe it, you can experience with it, and you can figure it out somehow. You know, we take vitamin supplements right now. We have pills. We have serums, we have injections, we have surgeries. None of them existed in this shape and form in the past. And that's, I think, the issue and the struggle. When people think of religion, if religion is the right way, it's complete. Why it didn't mention anything about this medication, about that therapy? Was never meant to, because Allah gave us the tools to figure it out ourselves. These pills and medications and formulas did not came from aliens. We figured them out. The intellect, the intelligence that Allah provided, He said, okay, go find it out yourself. But on the other hand, when it comes to the spiritual world, we cannot experiment with it. We don't know anything about it. We cannot study it. That's why the teachings about the soul, about the ruh, is divine. It has to come from above in a source of hierarchy. I'm not talking about the sky and, space or anything. Above means in the source of hierarchy. That Allah is the one, is wali. Allahu waliyul ladhi. Allah is in charge. He's the guardian. That is something that has to come from above. A lot of confusion will be resolved if we perceive religion from that perspective. We always have this confusion. Again, we had it at the pandemic. Should we get the vaccine or not? Should I wear the mask or not? I believe in God. My faith will protect me. Should I have an insurance or no? I just recite a Ayatul Kursi in the morning, or should I have a good coverage, a collision, a deductible? Or why are we confusing them together? The physical world that we live in a physical world, things are dictated in a certain way. In a physical world, even if you have the Prophet of God with you, Rasulullah, if you have Ali ibn Abi Talib on your side, if you have Hamza Sayyid al-Shuhada, Prophet's uncle, on your side, but you abandon a strategic position in the battle, you will lose that battle. The spiritual weight of your side, there is no one comparable on that side. You have the best of creation, Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and you have Khairul Khalq Ba'da Rasul. You have the next best after him, Ali ibn Abi Talib. So you have people on one side that no one, if you put all humanity, Imam Ali as-salam struck in the day of Khandaq, Prophet said, ضربة علي في يوم الخندق أفضل من عبادة الثقلين. Just one stroke of him, the hadith said, is greater than the worship of the both human and jinn together combined. So you have that person on one side. So you cannot compare this. But in the physical world, you snooze, you lose. Simple. You abandon your position, your greed takes the best of you, you start collecting war booties, enemies are going to come after you. And you're going to lose and you start running away. And Ali ibn Abi Talib was injured and Prophet was injured and Hamza Sayyid al-Shuhada was martyred. Physical world. Don't confuse. Physical world, in one side we have thousands of enemies. And narration said, we have the enemies of Imam al-Hussein on the day of Ashura. We have 6,000, 12,000, 20,000, 30,000. But one thing we know for sure is there are thousands. They have the numbers. In one side, you have Hussein ibn Ali alayhi salam, you have Abu al-Fadl Abbas, you have sons of Ali ibn Abi Talib, you have Habib ibn Madha, you have all those heroes and warriors. But numbers are not in your favor. Who's going to win that physical battle? It's obvious. But in the spiritual realm, who is the victorious one? Simple. We should not confuse them. You're going to live a life of Iman. That means sometimes you're not going to make as much money as somebody who doesn't live that life. That means that you're not going to have the same level of comfort as them. In life, maybe they have more comfort than you. But the question is, which realm we're talking about, physical realm or spiritual realm? We should understand Quran was never meant to make our life in any sense or fashion, the physical life, comfortable, perfect in any way. If you use Quran with that intention, we will be disappointed. But what Quran promised? Quran promised, Allah bidhikrillah tatma'innul qulub. I'll give you peace of heart. I'll give you a spiritual calm. I'll give you resilience. What Quran promised. I'll give you patience. وَتَوَاصَوْا بِالْحَقِّ وَتَوَاصَوْا. Everything is spiritual. Which of course it has its own impact on the physical life. Somebody who is patient, even in their worldly life, the way they live is different. But never said, okay, recite Quran and next day your business will triple. Your profit will triple because you recite. That was never meant to be the case. It was not a magic potion. It was never meant to be a magic potion. Our religion is the most pragmatic and practical. اليوم أكملت لكم دينكم وأتممت عليكم نعمتي. Allah said, I perfected and I completed this religion. It's very pragmatic, very practical. That's why it will not be outdated. Why? Because physical world is constantly changing, right? When people say religion of Islam or any other religion for that matter, it's an old phenomenon. It's been 1400 years ago. How something that existed 1400 years ago can answer the needs of someone who lives in this era? The same way that we don't ride horses and camels, the same way we don't travel in the old tradition, everything changed. Religion has to change too. The issue with that is people think that religion was about the physical life. You're right, you're correct. Physical realm always is changing. Yes, it is changing. Physically, our life is very different from the way of the time of the Prophet. But the spiritually is exactly the same. Greed is still there. It's just a fancy greed now. People were greedy about gold and silver and jewelry before. Now we're greedy with, I don't know, let's say Bitcoin or NFTs. Greed is there. Maybe you changed it, but the spirit is the same. Jealousy is jealousy. Arrogance is arrogance. The soul is intact. The diseases of the soul are the same. The healings of the soul are the same. That's why Quran and our religion, we call it, is not going to be limited by time. Make sense? Don't compare religion to dunya. So, oh, you think religion has for everything? How about your glasses? Who invented your glasses? How about your computer that you talk from? Your phone that you give the eye of Quran from? These are not invented by believers. No, and they try to, again, this is what you call safsata. This is not understanding the topic. Because the point was never for believers to be using things that were only invented by believers. That was never the case. That's why religion is not outdated, because soul is the same soul. So what we will talk about for a few minutes, I don't want to keep it so long because I will have to recite some musibah as well. And I've been noticing how patient you were with me during Muharram, because my lectures usually, some of them started late, some of them my lecture was long, and the musibah was long. So I appreciate that. It's not that I don't know. I recognize that. And inshallah, I do my best to not waste your time, to be as prepared as possible, and to make sure to deliver the point as straight as I can. But there are always inefficiencies. I'm doing my best, inshallah, to make it as efficient as possible. We want to talk about a subject called sealed heart, but is related to the healing of the heart, because one of the, let's call it the worst cases, let's call it the most severe diseases of the heart, is a sealed heart. What is sealed? Sealed is when, let's say, you uh, used to, in the past, when they wanted to write letters and they didn't want somebody else to open that letter, they would seal it with a certain mark. And if the seal is broken, you know that somebody opened it. So a sealed heart is, we can call it a heart that is inaccessible, that is locked, that is contained. And there are two terms in Quran for it. One is khatm. We should not confuse it with the Farsi word khatm. Khatm, sometimes in Farsi they translate it maybe in Urdu as well, it means completing, completion, ending. But in Arabic, khatm, it means seal, it means lock. So for example, in Surah Baqarah, Allah said, Khatamallahu ala qulubihim. Allah sealed their hearts. Wa ala sam'ihim. And Allah sealed their hearing. Wa ala absarihim. Allah sealed their sight. Ghishawa. There is this veil. وَلَهُمْ عَذَابٌ أَلِيمٌ. And for these hypocrites, most verses is about the non-believers or the hypocrites. They are making and asking for Allah's punishment, a very painful punishment for them. So there are 5 verses in Quran that Allah used the word khatm. Khatam Allahu ala qulub. Allah sealed their hearts. There's another word which is called tab'a, which also is being translated as seal. Tab'a in Arabic, it means when you coin something. So let's say metal, when it's in natural form, when they coin it, it gets the shape of whatever is going to be, let's call it the standard or the container that you wanted to shape it to that form. So coining also, it means sealing in a way, because once you coin something in a certain shape, it's going to stay that way. It's not going to change, right? Look at a penny or a quarter, right? It looks a certain way. It's not that, okay, I want it to look differently, easily you can do it. In order to do it, then you have to melt it and go through a lot of process in order to be able to change the shape of it. So some hearts, Allah said, they already have a shape. That shape is, because remember, what was the meaning of heart? Qalb, changing, transformation, right? Something is constantly changing, altering. But Allah said that a heart that is coined, it means is not going to change. It stays that way. Is a sealed heart. Is an intact heart. Why is it disease? What is it that is sealed from? It's sealed from guidance. It's sealed from change. That's why in the same Surah Baqarah, before this ayah, Allah says, سَوَاءٌ عَلَيْهِمْ أَأَنذَرْتَهُمْ أَمْ لَمْ تُنذِرْهُمْ لَا يُؤْمِنُونَ. So for these people that their hearts is sealed, it's the same if you warn them or not. If you try to say, okay, what you do is wrong, change yourself, you have to stop what you're doing, it does make no difference. La yu'minun. Allah said, I know they're not going to believe because of their hearts. Under this ayah, Imam Rida alayhi salam said, these are the heart of kuffar. These are the heart of those who disbelieve. They're so adamant in their disbelief that doesn't matter if Prophet of God is going to warn them or not, they're not going to listen. These are the ones that they made their mind. I had this conversation with people. Kufr, disbelief, denial. By the way, kufr in Arabic means when we hide something, when you cover something. In Quran, the word kuffar or kafir is being used sometimes in a neutral term. For example, one ayah in Quran used the word kuffar for farmers. Why for farmers? Because what farmer does is they're going to plant a seed and then they cover it, right? That's what farmer does. So a farmer is called kafir because what they do, they literally are hiding the seed under the ground. That's one meaning for kufr. There's a negative term for it, those who cover the truth. They deny the truth. They conceal the truth. They know that is right, but they still say, I don't believe in it. I don't want to. They cover it. And also is in a positive term as well. The word kufr is being used in positive. In Ayatul Kursi, right? الله ولي الذين آمنوا يخرجهم من الظلمات إلى النور والذين كفروا أولياءهم الطاغوت يخرجونهم من النور إلى الظلمات. Allah talks about taghut, which means the symbol of oppression and aggression. And then we have nur and light as a symbol of guidance. Allah said those that they are doing kufr to taghut. It means they are hiding and they're turning away from transgression. They turn away from the wrong. They're hiding the wrong. In other words, they're ignoring the wrong. That's a positive kufr. الله لا إله إلا هو الحي القيوم لا تأخذه السنة ولا نوم له ما في السماوات وما في الأرض من ذا الذي يشفع عنده إلا بإذنه يعلم ما بين أيديهم وما خلفهم ولا يحيطون بشيء من علمه إلا بما شاء وسع كرسيه السماوات والأرض ولا يؤود حفظهما وهو العلي العظيم. The entirety of Ayatul Kursi is about Allah. It's all about Allah. That know that the God that you believe in is not going to forget you, is not going to ignore you, is not going to fall asleep, is not going to be distracted. The Allah that you believe in is very different from the way you see others. So Ayatul Kursi, the reason it's so, by the way, is highly recommended to recite Ayatul Kursi on a daily basis, to recite it after our prayers, because what it does, it fixes our perception of God. And it said, لا إكراه في الدين قد تبين الرشد من الغي فمن يكفر بالطاغوت ويؤمن بالله. The one who does kufr to taghut and believe in God. So because when we believe in Allah, it means we don't believe in anyone beside Allah. That's kufr to anyone beside Allah. That's disbelief in anyone beside Allah. That's a positive kufr in Quran. So Imam Rida said, this khatam Allahu ala qulubihim. Those hearts that are sealed, Imam Rida says about the kuffar. It's about who disbelieve. They're the one that they already made their mind that no matter what prophet says, what miracle he performs, we're not going to believe. That's the sealed heart. And there are levels like that, right? Kufr has levels. The same way Jahannam, hell, has levels. Hell has levels and heaven has levels, because the justice of God is people will be compensated and punished according suitable to what they've achieved. It's not, it's the same for everyone. Once you're good, you go to heaven. Once you're bad, you go. There are levels, there are different severity for punishment, and then there's different level of blessing for compensation. That's the justice of God, by the way. That everyone, when they get the judgment, they know that is a fair judgment. Nobody faces Allah and says, Ya Allah, you did too much for me. That my punishment is more than I deserve. Everybody knows that. كل إنسان ألزمناه طائره في عنقه. Everyone on the day of judgment, they have the documents. They have the book of their deeds with them. So they know what they did and they know the judgment. That's why Dua Kumail is a beautiful, again, another great example of how to rectify our perception of God. Sometimes, because we always interact with people, we project our understanding of people to God. Because that's the way I do things, I think God is like me. Because people are like this, even good people are a certain way, I think God is. That's why reciting Dua Kumail is a good way to fix it. Allah is not like any of us. That's why Imam Ali salam said, if you throw me to hell, and I know that I did wrong, يَتَقَلْقَلُ بَيْنَ أَطْبَاقِهَا, as I'm suffering among the levels of hell, وَهُوَ يُنَادِيكَ يَا رَبَّ, while I'm calling you my Lord. How is that even possible? That I call you my Lord and I still be punished in that severity? That's not my understanding of you. This hayhat Far be from it. Impossible. That's not how you are. So kufr has levels, as I mentioned. So I see sometimes in our own level we have kufr. So let's say somebody wants to give a lecture. Somebody wants to talk to us about any topic. Let's say you talk to your parents about a decision. Sometimes we have a kufr. What is it? I already made up my mind. Doesn't matter what they say, I already know what I want. That's a sealed mind. Because a changing heart is a heart that's like, I listen. I listen. If what I hear is right, I'm going to listen. If not, I'm going to not. I'm going to. But if I come in and sit down knowing that I'm not going to change my mind, that itself is a problem. That's a sealed heart and a sealed mind. And it's not possible to change that. No matter how many argument you deliver, how many proof, how many, how much evidence you provide, that person made up their mind. That's why in the time of the Prophet, one of the companion of the Prophet later on became the companion. At the beginning, when he came to Mecca, he came to visit his friend. He was looking for his friend. Pagans of Mecca told him, there is again, I use their term. There is an insane man among us that he claimed to be the prophet of God. He says certain things, he recites things that he mesmerizes people with it. When he recites these words, it changes people. It's like magic. So make sure, avoid that region of Masjid al-Haram or Kaaba. When you go there, don't go to that corner. He's standing there, he's reciting. So number one, avoid him. What else? If you end up going there, put your fingers in your ears. Block your hearing. In other words, don't listen to him. Because if you listen, you're going to fall. And this person, he did. We have that some of them would put cottons in their ear to block it. Some of them put their hand on their ears. I don't want to hear you. Sometimes I've seen that in some young people. Their poor parent or somebody wants to talk to them. They put their hand, la, 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 I don't want to hear you. You've seen that? La, la. What is that? It's been a practice since the time of Prophet. It's not a new thing. I don't want to hear you. So this person said, I went and I saw him. And I saw his reciting thing, but I cannot understand because I cannot hear. So I told myself, what do you mean he says thing, and if what he says is right, I should listen to him. How can I know what he's saying and say is bad without listening to him? Let me hear. And then we have that he put his hand down, and the pagans were right because he did change. But not because Prophet did any magic, because what he heard was good. It changed them because of the guidance that provided. So one message, practical lesson for our time. If you go talk to someone in the name of consultation, in the name of therapy, in the name of advice, please keep an open mind. Don't waste somebody's time. Okay, I want your opinion, but I already made up my mind. I want your approval. That's what it is. Call it for what it is. Don't pretend that is advice. Don't pretend that I'm keeping an open mind. If I made up my mind and I know what I do, have issues, but I made up my mind. No matter what, I know. That's a sealed kind of complete opinion that I'm not going to change. That's a level of, as I said, sealed heart. So there is a solution, inshallah. I'll leave that for next time. There are causes of the sealed heart. The major cause of sealed heart comes from kufr, as I mentioned, disbelief. When you see the truth and you turn a blind eye on it. I said, I know it's right, but I still do it. I know it's right. It means that, let's say I know it, I shouldn't do this, but I still do it. That's a level of kufr. Not in a way that labeling somebody as kafir and religion and kufr belong to Allah. The one who knows whose heart is sealed and whose heart is not sealed is only Allah. I cannot walk around and call people, oh, your heart is sealed. Remember, these are not information shared with us guidance shared with us in order to walk around and label people. The point of this was to help us self-diagnose, because its soul is all about self. So the only one can truly detect it is myself. So indifferent toward warning. Imam Ali alayhi salam said, أحيي قلبك بالموعظة. One way to unseal the heart, to revive the heart, is through listening to advice, keeping an open mind and listen to advice. Maw'idha, preaching. Alhamdulillah, you do that. Everybody's sitting here listening. And again, I'm not quoting myself. I'm not saying these are the teachings of the Quran, teachings and hadiths of the Prophet and his family. So when you listen to their maw'idha, their advice, they're they're the masters, they're the mu'allim, they're the teachers. Who better than them? If we keep an open heart, inshallah, and listen to it, it will revive the heart. There's always a chance to bring heart back. But stubbornness stops people from letting that happen. Kufr stops people from making that happen. And the third reason sealed heart happens is when we embrace our desires, our lowly desires. Those who are servants of their desires, they automatically end up sealing their heart. Why? Because when I say I make up my mind, it means that I want what I want and I don't care. That means I worship my desire. Because sometimes I give an example. You're a married person. You desire breaking your commitment to your family. You desire a relationship haram outside your marriage. You desire so many things. It's wrong. But if I embrace it, I'm a human being, life is short, I do whatever, I don't care. That's somebody who worshiped their desire more than Allah. أَفَرَأَيْتَ مَنِ اتَّخَذَ إِلَهَهُ هَوَى. If we become someone, hawa, what is hawa? Again, hawa in Arabic is different from the hawa in Farsi, which means air. Hawa in Arabic refers to desires, lowly desires. Let's say our wants, our likes, our needs. That's what desires are. I want this, I want that, I like that. These are desires. Need is different. Wants and likes are usually desired. When we are asked a question, why you do this? Or even you can ask yourself, why I do this? If the answer to that is because I like it, that's hawa. That's what it is. That's hawa. If you come to masjid and they ask you why you come to masjid, sometimes you say, I need to go. I like to go because I talk to my friends, I socialize. That's a good part, that's you socialize. Because our hawa is part of our existence. But if we become the servant of the hawa, it means blindly I follow. Whatever I want, I do that. I'm going to break hearts. I'm going to break rules because my desire wants me. That is leading us to a sealed heart. That's a mind that is already made. The solution and the healing is exactly opposite of that. We need to train our hawa, our desires. We need to make our desires are submitted to us. That's a very big statement. It's a practice on constant basis we need to practice. Because one is that to be the servant of desire, another is that our servant become our servant, our desires become our servant. That's why in our hadith and tradition teaches us how to do it. For example, we want to talk. That's one of the desires. We want to say things. Speaking from the master, right? We want to talk. Honestly, sometimes I don't want to talk. I have to. There's a solution to train it. What is it? Silence. Selective silence. Selective mutism. Okay, I need to train my tongue. I cannot say whatever I want. Let's stay quiet. Same as with the rest of our desires. I want to watch this. Simple solution. I need to train my eyes. You watch what I tell you to watch, not what you want to watch. It's easy? No. You know, as a human being, as a young age, we're all desires. Children are pure desires because intellect is not developed yet. Reason is not developed. Children, they want what they want. If you don't give them what they want, what they do? What they do? They throw a tantrum. Right? They throw a tantrum, that's all it is. They start screaming, crying. They desire something. As they age, that's why we have in our tradition 1 to 6, 1 to 7. Don't force your children because they're, again, you cannot expect them to be reasonable. 1 to 7, we have in a hadith of the Prophet and Imam al-Sadiq, both. They said that your children 1 to 7, your children are your masters. Waladuka amiruk. 1 to 7, you cannot put too much discipline or anything into it. Again, there is no reason. There's not. 7 to 14, on the other hand, is a time of discipline. Your child is like your employee. It's like somebody who works for you. Discipline. That's the time reason comes in. You have to shape their desires. As a parents, teach them. Not to make them your servant, but to teach them how to conduct themselves. Children are pure desire at the young age. A solution is to, again, understand that desires are there, they're part of our existence from the young age. But aql needs to be developed. Reason has to be developed. So the opposite of what we mentioned, rather than embracing desires, we need to control them. We need to manage them. For children, there are ways to deal with children. For young people, there's a way to young people. With elders, for every age, there's a suitable method to deal with it. But there should be the recognition that when I'm dealing with a sealed heart, if warnings are not making any impact, I see death means nothing to me. I hear reason, truth, it means nothing to me. I get it, but I don't care. That's a sealed heart. Let's inshallah ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to give us a tawfiq, which I said is a very worst case, inshallah. We're not dealing with, and most of us, we're not dealing with sealed heart, because I said kufr, which is the ultimate level of disease of the soul, which somebody deny the creator, denies the truth of the divine, is usually for many of us is not the issue. The issue we are dealing with usually in the other levels, but that should not be a reason to ignore it. There's always a possibility for somebody to end up there. A Muslim can have a heart that is sealed. Yes, Imam al-Hussein alayhi salam, let me recite it, and that would be the beginning of my musibah. Recite a salawat. Imam al-Hussein alayhi salam has this famous tradition that on the day of Ashura, when he was advising them, when he was warning them, again warning, remember, sawa'un alayhim a'anzartum am lam tunzirhum, is the same if you warn them or not. On the day of Ashura, when Imam al-Hussein alayhi salam warned them, they laughed, they clapped, they were joyous, they were happy, they did not care. Imam al-Hussein alayhi salam, this is the way he responded. ويلكم ما عليكم أن تنصتوا إلي فتسمعوا قولي وإنما أدعوكم إلى سبيل الرشاد وكلكم عاص لأمري غير مستمع قولي فقد ملئت بطونكم من الحرام وطبع على قلوبكم. So woe upon you, what happens to you? What's wrong with you? What's the harm of you listening to me? What would you lose if you listened to me? Because what I'm doing is I'm leading you toward the Sabil al-Rashad. I'm advising you for what's good for you. I'm not asking you to do anything against your own interest. But now you decided to disobey, to turn away, because your stomach are filled with unlawful, with haram. And your hearts are sealed now. That's why you don't listen. You made up your mind that you're going to kill me, that you are right and I'm wrong. That's why we have 32 people change their side on the night of Ashura. One of them is Hur, which was on the day of Ashura, but on the night of Ashura, 32 people changed their side. They joined Imam al-Hussein alayhi salam, because he was giving these talks before, prior to the day of Ashura. Imam did not wait it for the last minute. And those 32 people, their heart had a chance to change. So exception matters, by the way. Because sometimes we always say, everybody's like this, everybody does this. Say, okay, let's, weddings are probably, all the weddings are like this. So no, you could be exception. Exception matters. 32 people decided not to be on the wrong side of the history. But when we speak of the sealed hearts, some of them, they were present on the day of Ashura. Those who, the brutality, savageness. Some of them, they were not in the day of Ashura. They were not in the land of Karbala. They were in Kufa. They were in Sham. But their hearts was in the same type of hearts of the people who were there. That's why in Ziyarat we say it. It said, Ya Allah, deprive your mercy away from those that they participated in the battle, those who prepared for the battle. Maybe they did not join, but they were ready. Maybe they did not get the order to attack. Because if they could have, they would have done it. And also those that in their hearts, they were pleased with the killing of Imam al-Hussein. They're also a culprit. That's why the hadith of Imam al-Jawad alayhi salam said, if somebody, they are not present, they're absent in an event, but their heart are happy with it, they are a participant. Anything, by the way. You read about the Imam al-Hussein's story, you read about the Prophet, you read about anything good, and you say, I'm happy with it. It's like that you were participating. And the same is for the evil. That I read something evil and I say, I wish I was there. You're a participant. And if you're present somewhere, but your heart is not there, you don't want to be here. You're at the masjid, you're sitting, but your heart is not here. You don't want to be here. You're forced to be here. Except children, which inshallah they will benefit the discipline, the adults. Is as if you're absent. It is as if you're absent. That's the role of the heart. Tonight I want to recite and dedicate this program to another example of how cruel human beings can get. There's a hadith by Imam Muhammad al-Baqir alayhi salam. Imam says that if you think that your heart is sick, try to show kindness to orphans. Because as you are moving your hand on the head of an orphan, with every single of the orphan's hair being comforted by you, Allah will open a thread of light in your heart, showing kindness to orphans. Because when you show kindness to your children, they are from you. There is a bit of selfishness in it. It's good, but it's still there's selfishness. But with an orphan that they have nothing to do with it, they're an orphan. You show it out of that selflessness because of Allah, because of compassion. Allah recognizes that. So I want to dedicate tonight's program to an orphan of Imam al-Hussein alayhi salam. In the history, her name is mentioned as Ruqayya, and some mention as Fatima, as mentioned. There are different names for her. In every culture, they know her by one name, but we're referring to one person. They're all one. It's a 3 to 4 years old daughter of Imam al Hussein alayhi salam, who was orphaned in the day of Ashura. She was one of the prisoners of war, and she was in chains and shackles until they brought them to Kufa, and from Kufa they brought her to Sham, which was the center of the animosity against Imam Ali alayhi salam. And Sham was it was much worse than Kufa, because people of Kufa, they were bribed, they were scared, but many of them didn't want the tragedy to take place. But people of Sham, many of them celebrated killing of Imam al-Hussein. They fasted for the sake of gratitude that Imam al-Hussein was killed. And when this child was brought to city of Sham, so there's two majlis which people confuse. Hazrat Zainab, orphans, widows, once they were brought into Ubaidullah ibn Ziyad. He is the one, was the governor of Kufa. There's one lecture of Hazrat Zainab there. And then there is the next stop, which was in Sham, which was in the majlis, which means in the palace of Yazid in Sham. And that's Hazrat Zainab did another speech there. And Sham was much worse because that's the center of where Yazid is. So I will refer to this child as Ruqayya. And there is a grave in Sham right now. There is a ziyarat for her. And there again, in many books of history, there is the report of this child being the orphan of Imam al-Hussein and dying in the city of Sham. One thing about her life is I would say it's a very difficult, and for me, whenever I recite the Musibah of Ali al-Asghar and this child, it's much more difficult because just imagining a child being abused, even if somebody has no religion, even, if you look at regardless of being religious, nationality, one thing that is abhorrent, is despicable, is to imagine child abuse. Every abuse is bad, but child abuse in a different level. But someone like Ruqayya, first of all, she did not comprehend the killing of her father because she was shielded and protected by Hazrat Zainab. Imagine 3 years old. Battle is happening. They're not going to let her go watch the battle. So she doesn't know what's going on. And, as parents, sometimes we try to protect our children. We don't tell them, about bad news, sad news. We try to find a metaphor, a way, a figure of speech. Say, okay, they're guests somewhere. A 3-year-old cannot really understand what's the meaning of death. So maybe I think the terminology was used for her was that your dad, Hussein alayhi salam, he's a guest. He's guest with God. He's a guest of God now. He's traveling. But I don't know how she saw the heads on the spears. The tragedy of Hussein continued after Ashura because the head of those martyrs were walking ahead of the caravan. And the families have to look at them and they have to relive that suffering and that loss over and over again. The moment you try to cry and, you fall asleep and you open your eyes and you see again the head of your families and your beloveds are in front of you. Until they arrived to Sham. I'm skipping Kufa. I'm skipping all the tortures they went through because it took them days until they get to Sham. First, they stopped them behind the gates of Sham. Said, okay, we're decorating the city. We're now ready for you. We're going to celebrate. So they're waiting outside. They stayed overnight. They entered the city, and now it's a moment of happiness and joy of people who lost their loved ones. Subhanallah, Ali ibn Abi Talib in the Battle of Jamal, they won the battle. Imam Ali won the Battle of Jamal. He told his companion, don't show happiness in front of the families of the victim, the people who fought against us, the one that were trying to kill us, the one who started the battle. And we only defended ourselves. When it comes to their family members, don't gloat in front of them. That's how the teachings of our religion is. But that's the path of Ali, not the path of Muawiyah. The tradition of Bani Umayyah is when somebody's on the ground, you further kick them. So as they entered the city, they showcased them in the street of Sham, calling them Khariji, heretics. The family of the Prophet, the remaining living family members of the Prophet, granddaughters of the Prophet. I'm not talking about great granddaughter, granddaughter of the Prophet Zainab, granddaughter of the Prophet Kulthum. They're being called heretics and Khariji. They brought them to the palace of Yazid. There's a conversation. One thing Hazrat Zainab told her was, is that right for your family to be shielded, protected, and you showcase the family of the Prophet in front of stranger men? Is that fair? There's Tariq al-Tabari's reference that one of the people around Yazid said, sell these young girls to us as slaves. And we have, as daughter of Imam al-Hussein, heard that. She came to Hazrat Zainab and said, my aunt Zainab, I thought we suffered enough with the loss of our father, with the loss of our brothers. Now we have to be sold as slave. And Zainab said, my beloved, the beloved of my brother, the light of my eyes, until your aunt is breathing, that's not going to happen. And that's when she gave that lecture that everybody began to cry. And they brought them, imagine if prisoners of the war, they're women, so there's no prison. They found some ruins in Sham. There are guards around this ruin, and they settled them in the ruins. Make it again, further humiliate them. And in the middle of the night, Ruqayya is asking for her father. Oh, Aunt Zainab, where's my father? As the name of Hussein was mentioned, other family members began to cry. And now is a moment that all the grief, all the sorrow, because on the way they were not permitted to cry. And now in the ruins, there are, again, not that many people around them. So all those tears that were suppressed, now is a moment to release them. So they begin to cry. This is a moment of mourning. They say, Wa Husayna, Wa Aliya, Wa Muhammada. And as cry begin, we have that Yazid heard, because it was next to the palace of Yazid. What's going on? Why they're crying? And they brought the news that, some of the orphans, they're asking for their dad. They want their father. Said, where's the head of Hussein? Take the head of Hussein to them. And as they brought the head, again, Hazrat Zainab, the other women are not going to take the head of Hussein to a child, to a 3-year-old. So we have that they wanted to stop them. Marhuma Majlisi said, as they were trying to stop, they start flogging them, they start whipping them, they start slapping them around. And they put the head of Hussein on the lap of Ruqayya. And as she is looking at the head of her father, said, again, this is the language of a child. Said, where have you been, my dad? Who have done this to you? Why your beard is covered in blood? Why your hair are covered in ashes? Who has done this to you? السلام عليك يا أبا عبد الله وعلى الأرواح التي حلت بفنائك عليك مني سلام الله أبدا ما بقيت وبقي الليل والنهار ولا جعله الله آخر العهد مني لزيارتكم السلام على الحسين وعلى علي بن الحسين وعلى أولاد الحسين وعلى أصحابه. سخت است وقتی روز وصف دختری باشد، سخت است وقتی روز وصف دختری باشد. حالا تصور کن به دستش هم سری باشد. سر بابا رو آوردن داخل خرابه، صدا زدن هذا رأس أبيك الحسين، فرفعته من الطشت حاضنه له. سر بابا رو با دستهای کوچکش بلند کرد. سخت است وقتی روز وصف دختری باشد. حالا تصور کن به دستش همسری باشد. حالا تصور کن که آن سر ماه خون رنگی در حال ای از گیسوی خاکستری باشد. دختر دلش پر می کشد بابا که می آید، موهای شانه کرده اش در معجری باشد. ای کاش میشد بر تنش پیراهنی زیبا، یا لااقل پیراهن سالم تری باشد. پیش سخت است هم شیرین زبان باشی و هم فکرت پیش عموی تشنه آب آوری باشد. با آن همه چشم انتظاری باورش سخت است، سهمت از آغوش پدر تنها سرش باشد. شلاق را گاهی تحمل می کند شانه، اما نه وقتی شانه های لاغری باشد، اما نه وقتی تازیانه دست نامردان دور و بر گمگشته بیاوری باشد. خواهرتر از او کیست؟ او که هر که آب آورد چشمش به دنبال علی اصغری باشد. بابا جان نه جای من نه جای تو نه جای عمه است اینجا، مرا با خود ببر بابا و هم بازی اصغر کن. وای از دل زینب، وای از دل زینب که باید روز و شب انگار در پیش چشمش روزای مادری باشد. وقتی آوردن سر رو حضرت زینب ام کلثوم، زنان آمدن جلوی این سربازان رو بگیرن. گفتن او دختری که دنبال بابا بهانه بابا گرفته بود، هرچه خواستن جلو رو بگیرن با تازیانه با کعبه ای زنان رو گذاشتن. مگر گذاشتن ناله بزنن گریه کنن؟ اول صدای گریهشون رو خاموش کردن. مگر نمیدانید یزید در خواب است؟ بعد آوردن سر حسین رو داخل تشتی مقابل رقیه قرار دادن. صدا زدن هذا رأس ابیک الحسین، این سر بابای تو حسین است. سر رو بلند کرد، درد دل کرد به زبان کودکی خودش. بابا کجا بودی؟ در بین راه ما رو با تازیانه و کعبه نی زدن. بابا مرا با خود ببر، می ترسم از دشمن، در فکر مهمانی و تشت دیگری باشد. قرآن کجا و تشت زر و خیزران کجا؟ چوب جفا کجا و لب میهمان کجا؟ باید بیایم با تو در برگشت میترسم، در راه خار و سنگهای بدتری باشد. باید بیایم با تو بابا، باید بیایم با تو، آخر خسته شد امه، شاید برای او شب راحت تری باشد. این لحظاتی رو رقیه درد دل کرد. وقتی صدای رقیه آرام شد، زینب آمد کنار بدن رقیه، دیدی بچه 3 سال روی زمین افتاده، سر بابا در آغوشش روی زمین افتاده. هرچه صدا زد رقیه جان، عزیز دل حسین، عزیز دل عمه، صدایی از رقیه نیامد. جان بی جان رقیه بر زمین بود است. بدن رو بلند کرد آمدن غسل بدن. آخه این بدن 3 ساله مگه طاقت غسل رو دارد؟ آمدن بدن رو غسل بدن. در بعضی از جاها نقل است زن غساله رو کرد به زینب، آی خانم بگو این بچه به چه بیماری از دنیا رفته؟ بچه 3-4 ساله. رو کرد زینب، به خدا قسمی بچه بیماری نداشته. مگر می شود این بچه بیماری نداشته باشه؟ هر جای بدن این بچه رو نگاه میکنم کبوده. و علی لعنت الله وعلى لعنة الله على القوم الظالمين. وسيعلم الذين ظلموا أي منقلب ينقلبون. إنا لله وإنا إليه راجعون. Ya Allah, by the honor of Hazrat Ruqayyah, help us to be of those who care for the orphans, who sponsor orphans, who show kindness and compassion to orphans. By the honor of Hazrat Ruqayyah, all the children, all the innocent people of the world, Ya Allah, protect them from the harm of the evil. By the honor of Hazrat Ruqayyah, Salamullah alayha, all those who cause the suffering of the orphans, especially the orphans of Hussein and his companions, Ya Allah, deprive them from your mercy. Ya Allah, by the honor of Hazrat Ruqayyah, Salamullah alayha, hasten a return of Imam of our time, Imam Sahib al-Asr wa Zaman. Let's everybody stand up. We finish and conclude our majlis by the azza of Imam al-Hussein alayhi salam. Assalamu alayk ya Aba Abdullah. Assalamu alayk ya Aba Abdullah. Assalamu alayk يا أبا عبد الله. سيدي يا مظلوم يا أبا عبد الله. سيدي يا مظلوم يا أبا عبد الله. سيدي يا مظلوم organize two lines. سيدي يا مظلوم يا أبا عبد الله السلام عليك يا أبا السلام عليك يا عبد الله
عليك يا أبا عبد الله صلوات محمدي اللهم صل على محمد و آل محمد. جز من به کودکی چه کسی قامتش خمید، سن 3 ساله منت 100 ساله را کشید. از بس گرد مصیبت نشسته بر روی من، گویا به کودکی موی سرم شده سپید. معمور بودم ز پدر تا به شهر شام اقرا برای مردم اقجو کنم سپید. بی اصل بدون قوا آمدم ولی از من شکست خورد به نیروی حق یزید. خراب شام و خراب باغ و منم بلبل و سرش چون گل، من این خرابه به باغ بهشت نفروشم. از آن زمان که تو را بوریا کفن دیدم، قسم به جان پدر کفن نمی پوشم. غریب مظلوم با عبدالله الحسین صلوات محمد و آله. ای وای و مظلومان حسین، ای وای و محرومان حسین، ای وای و مظلومان حسین، ای وای و محرومان حسین، ای وای و محرومان حسین. ای زمین کربلا بودیم و ما مهمان تو، ای زمین کربلا بودیم و ما مهمان تو. نیکفی خوردیم زهاب و نیجوی از نان تو، نیکفی خوردیم زهاب و نیجوی از نان تو. ای وای و مظلومان حسین، ای وای و محرومان حسین، ای وای و مظلومان حسین، ای وای و محرومان حسین. آفتابت ای زمین امروز بسی سوزان بود، آفتابت ای زمین امروز بسی سوزان بود. جسم سجاک حسین بر روی تو حریان بود، جسم سجاک حسین بر روی تو حریان بود. ای وای و مظلومان حسین، ای وای و محرومان حسین، ای وای و مظلومان حسین، ای وای و محرومان حسین. ای زمین کربلا امشب حسین تنها بود، ای زمین کربلا امشب حسین تنها بود. نی غلط گفتم که امشب ساربان اینجا بود، نی غلط گفتم که امشب ساربان اینجا بود. ای وای و مظلومان حسین، ای وای و محرومان حسین، ای وای و مظلومان حسین، ای وای و محرومان حسین. صلوات محمدی.
بر محمد اهل بیت محمد صلوات. کرب و بلا نور دو عینم کجاست سید مظلوم حسینم کجاست کرب و بلا نور دو عینم کجاست سید مظلوم حسینم کجاست کرب و بلا نور دو عینم حسینم کجاست هر شب جمعه به خروش و نوا فاطمه طاهر خیر النسا روی نماید به سوی نینوا گرید و گوید به صف کربلا کرب و بلا نور دو عینم کجاست سید مظلوم حسینم کجاست حسینم کجاست مونس من مونس غم خار داشت داد رسو یاور و انصار داشت یاور علمدار و مددگار داشت نیست چرا یک تن از ایشان بجا کرب و بلا نور دو عینم کجاست سید و مظلوم حسینم کجاست حسینم کجاست آنچه شد جعفر بیار کو قاسم بیمونس و غمخوار کو حضرت عباس علمدار کو تو علی اکبر فرخ لقا کرب و بلا نور دو عینم کجاست لوم حسینم کجاست کرب و بلا نور دو عینم کجاست نم کجاست توتی خوش نغمه باغ جنان کو علی اصغر شیرین زبان رفت به میدان پای آب روان نیست نوایش ز چه در نینوا کرب و بلا نور دو عینم کجاست سید مظلوم حسینم کجاست کرب و حسینم کجاست آنچه شد جعفر بیار کو قاسم بیمونس و غمخوار کو حضرت عباس علمدار کو کو علی اکبر فرخ لقا کرب و بلا نور دو عینم کجاست کجاست کرب و بلا نور دو عینم کجاست سید مظلوم حسینم کجاست هر شب جمعه به خروش و نوا فاطمه طاهر خیر النسا روی نماید به سوی نینوا گرید و گوید به صف کربلا کرب و بلا نور دو عینم کجاست کجاست کرب و بلا نور دو عینم کجاست سید مظلوم حسینم کجاست مونس من مونس غم خار داشت داد رسو یاور و انصار داشت یار و علمدار و مددگار داشت نیست چرا یک تن از ایشان بجا کرب و بلا نور دو عینم کجاست سید مظلوم حسینم کجاست کرب و بلا نور دو عینم کجاست سید مظلوم حسینم کجاست بر محمد اهل بیت محمد صلوات
اللهم صل على محمد و آل محمد وعجل
فلک ظلم و ستم بر زینب خونم جگر کردی
یا حسین
از این غم تا قیامت خون دل خیر البشر کردی
یا حسین
طلب کردی به مهمانی شهیدی نازکین آخر حسین را سر بریدی خواهرش را در بدر کردی. چرا از ما فل مای پدر از من سفر کردی. چرا از ما فل مای پدر از من سفر، چرا از دوری رویت مرا خونین جگر کردی. چرا از ما فل مای پدر سفر کردی. رقیه دخت شاهدین شبی در شام غم افزا، ز هجر با به خود گشتی بسی در شی و غوغا. سرشک از دیدگان جاری همی نالی دو می گفتا که ای بابا یه مظلومم با کوی کی گذر کردی. چرا از ما فل مای پدر از می سفر کردی. چرا از ما فل مای پدر سفر کردی. یتیم در بدر گشتم همی نالم ز هجرانت. بیا بابا دم دیگر مرا بنشان به دامانت. کجا رفتی تو ای بابا سر و جانم با قربانت. ز ما افسردگان بابا چرا قطع نظر کردی. چرا از ما فل مای پدر از می سفر کردی. چرا از ما فل مای پدر از می سفر کردی. نباشد تا ختم دیگر بگیریم از برای تو. کنم خاک سیاه بر سر پدر جان در عزای تو. کجایی ای پدر جان تا که چینم من بلای تو. نمیدانم سفر اندر کدام این بو مبر کردی. چرا از ما فل مای پدر از می سفر کردی. چرا از ما فل مای پدر سفر کردی. ز ضرب سیلی اعدا رخم نیلی شده بابا. ز ضرب سیلی اعدا رخم نیلی شده بابا. شکیبایی نبی باشد توانم رفت از آزا. ز دل این دهم بابا ز وصل روی خود بکشا. ز فقدانت مرا افسرده و خونین جگر کردی. چرا از ما فل مای پدر از می سفر کردی. چرا از ما فل مای پدر از می سفر کردی. چرا از دوری رویت مرا خونین جگر کردی. عجوکم الله. بارگو پیامبر که علی جان من است بجان علی مو اسم محمد صلوات. تشکر، خدا تو رو حفظ کنه. خیر ببینید.
خوشنودی قلب مقدس آقا امام زمان صلوات بلند.
اللهم صل علی محمد و
خون گلوی حسین بوی خدا میدهد، خون گلوی حسین بوی خدا میدهد، خون گلوی حسین بوی خدا میدهد، خون گلوی حسین، خون گلوی حسین بوی خدا میدهد. تربت کوی حسین، تربت کوی حسین، به آبروی حسین به ما شفا میدهد، درد و دوا میدهد، به ما شفا میدهد، درد و دوا میدهد. خون گلوی حسین بوی خدا میدهد، خون گلوی حسین بوی خدا، خون گلوی حسین به سینه خسته زینب کبرا قسم، به سینه خسته زینب کبرا قسم، به جان زهرا قسم، به داغ لیلا قسم، به جان زهرا قسم، به داغ لیلا قسم، که درد بی دوا را حسین شفا میدهد، که درد بی دوا را حسین شفا میدهد. خون گلوی حسین، خون گلوی حسین، خون گلوی حسین به کام خشکیده علی اصغر قسم، به کام خشکیده علی اصغر قسم، به نخل خوابیده علی اکبر قسم، به قاسم نامراد به اون و جعفر قسم، به قاسم نامراد به اون و جعفر قسم، که روز محشر حسین آب بقا میدهد، که روز محشر حسین آب بقا میدهد. خون گلوی حسین، خون گلوی، خون گلوی حسین بوی خدا، به سینه خسته زینب کبرا قسم، به سینه خسته زینب کبرا قسم، به جان زهرا قسم، به داغ لیلا قسم، به جان زهرا قسم، به داغ لیلا قسم، که درد بی دوا را حسین شفا میدهد، که درد بی دوا را حسین شفا میدهد. خون گلوی حسین بوی خدا میدهد، خون، خون گلوی به سینه خسته زینب کبرا قسم. قیامت بی حسین قوقا ندارد، شفاعت بی حسین معنا ندارد. حسینی باش تا فردا نگویند چرا پرونده ات امضا ندارد. خون گلوی حسین بوی خدا میدهد، خون گلوی حسین، بلندتر بگو، خون گلوی حسین به کام خشکیده علی اصغر قسم، به کام خشکیده علی اصغر قسم، به نخل خوابیده علی اکبر قسم، به قاسم نامراد به اون و جعفر قسم که روز محشر حسین آب بقا میدهد. خون گلوی حسین، خون گلوی حسین. بر محمد و آل بیتش صلوات بلند.
السلام عليك يا رسول الله، يا نبي الله، يا خير خلق الله، يا خاتم النبيين. السلام عليك يا أمير المؤمنين ويا إمام المتقين علي بن أبي طالب. السلام عليك يا فاطمة الزهراء سيدة نساء العالمين. السلام عليك يا حسن بن علي المجتبى. السلام على الحسين وعلى علي بن الحسين وعلى أولاد الحسين وعلى أصحاب الحسين. السلام على علي بن الحسين زين العابدين. السلام على محمد بن علي الباقر. السلام على جعفر بن محمد الصادق. السلام على موسى بن جعفر الكاظم. السلام على علي بن موسى الرضا. السلام على محمد بن علي التقي الجواد. السلام على علي بن محمد الهادي النقي. السلام على حسن بن علي العسكري. السلام عليك يا صاحب الزمان، يا خليفة الرحمن، يا إمام الإنس والجان. عجل الله تعالى فرجك وسهل الله تعالى مخرجك وظهورك. السلام عليكم يا أهل بيت النبوة ورحمة الله وبركاته. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. إنا أعطيناك الكوثر فصل لربك وانحر إن شانئك هو الأبتر. صدق الله العلي العظيم. وإلى أرواح المؤمنين والمؤمنات ولشفاء مرضانا رحم الله لمن قرأ الفاتحة مع الصلوات.
عالم آمد زیر این پرچم، میدمد بر جان ما صبح سپید کربلا. ای دستا بیاد بالا. میدمد بر جان ما صبح سپید کربلا، میرود هر لحظه ما با امید کربلا. تشنه آغوش یارم ای اجل مهلت بده، تا بگیرد در بغل ما را شهید کربلا. بیقرارم ای کس و کارم، من به این پرچم بدهکارم. دلتنگ دیدار تو هم دلگشایی کن یا حسین، ما را کربلایی کن. دلتنگ دیدار تو هم دلگشایی کن یا حسین، ما را کربلایی کن. عشق بی پایان ای جان گل میان الغم فتاده، یک گل میان الغم فتاده، دستش جدا بر روی خاک ابوالفضل. یا حسین یا حسین پر کشیده هر دل عاشق به سوی کربلا، تا نماند بر دل ما آرزوی کربلا. از پر گهوارم تا لحظه جان دادنم، بر مشامم میرسد هر لحظه بوی کربلا. بوی اسفند عزا آمد، عطر سیب کربلا آمد. ماه محرم ماه غم، ماه سارالله بر اشک روزه الحمدلله. ماه محرم ماه غم، ماه سارالله بر اشک روزه الحمدلله. شد بهار غم، آه از این ماتم، عالم آمد زیر این پرچم. میدمد بر جان ما صبح سپید کربلا. آی دستا بیاد بالا. میدمد بر جان ما صبح سپید کربلا. میرود هر لحظه ما با امید کربلا. تشنه آغوش یارم ای اجل مهلت بده، تا بگیرد در بغل ما را شهید کربلا. بیقرارم ای کس و کارم، من به این پرچم بدهکارم. دلتنگ دیدار تو هم دلگشایی کن یا حسین ما را کربلا.